From currency, jewelry, and tools in the prehistoric age to industrial machines and electrical systems in the modern day, it is clear that, since the dawn of humanity, copper has played an integral role in maintaining and advancing society.
Nevertheless, it is important to recognize the damaging side effects of the extraction of this material. As the condition of Earth's natural systems worsens through climate change and pollution, it becomes increasingly necessary to find ways to sustainably manage our precious resources.
So today, we'll be taking a deep dive into copper. What it is, how it's harvested, where it's found, what it's used for, and how important it is in the economy. However, we will also be examining the flaws in our approaches and what it means to truly exploit this resource responsibly.
As demonstrated by this graphic, copper can be found around the globe. According to Natural Resources Canada, Chile, Australia, and Peru are the three countries with the largest copper reserves. Canada can be found not much farther down in this list, ranking in 12th place with an estimated 1% of the global total.
Speaking of Canada, more than 80% of the copper produced here originates from the provinces of Ontario and British Columbia. In fact, BC produces more than half of Canada's copper and much of its other metals as well. This can be clearly seen in this map, which showcases where mines can be found in Canada.
But why is that copper is found in these specific places? In Canada, why is it that there's so much copper in BC? Is there some sort of pattern? Well, it turns out that there is. Research suggests that copper is typically found in two formats: volcanogenic massive sulfide deposits and porphyry copper deposits.
Volcanogenic massive sulfide deposits can be found around the globe in clusters, generally following tectonic plate boundaries, known as fault lines, and zones surrounding underwater volcanic activity. VMS deposits generally form at the seafloor in areas where the Earth's crust thins. Now, VMS deposits make up almost a quarter of Canada's copper production, with notable mine sites including Kidd Mine and Windy Craggy.
A porphyry deposit is a mineral deposit distinguished by the presence of dispersed ore found within huge portions of igneous rock known as porphyries. These deposits are major producers for metals like copper that are situated in rocks such as these. Generally, porphyry deposits form in regions that have experienced extensive magmatic intrusions and tectonic activity such as volcanoes, fault lines, and subduction zones.
This explains why copper is located where it is, because Canada has 5 potentially active volcanic areas, 4 of which are found in British Columbia. Since volcanism is heavily associated with the genesis of both VMS and porphyry deposits, it makes sense that BC is the leading province in copper production.
Copper harvesting is generally performed through open pit mining, which is a surface mining approach in which a series of step benches are dug deeper and deeper into the earth until this resource, which is copper, is depleted or is no longer economically viable for the company because the ratio of waste rock to resource is too high. In order to actually extract the ore, drilling machinery is used to bore holes into the rock, which are then filled with explosives.
After the boulders are suitable for hauling, the ore is transported from the blasting site to the processing site using a range of vehicles. After passing through a primary crusher, the majority of ores are reduced in size from boulders to rocks the size of golf balls. Lastly, the ores are processed in specific manners based on its nature. The most common method for processing oxide ores is hydrometallurgy, and the most common method for sulfide ores is pyrometallurgy.
One company that currently operates a Canadian copper mine is called Teck. They control Highland Valley copper operations, which can be found in south-central British Columbia, roughly 17 kilometers west of Logan Lake. This is currently the largest open-pit copper mine in Canada, producing 119,000 tons of copper in 2022.
This mine has a high volume of low-grade copper porphyry, meaning that the copper is loosely distributed among the rock. However, they are incredibly successful because of their hydrometallurgy processing technique, known as flotation. After the ore has been ground, it is fed into flotation cells, each of which is filled with a frothy solution. Each cell receives a pumping of air, which agitates the solution and raises bubbles to the surface. The majority of the unwanted material goes to the bottom of the tanks, but the particles of copper stick to these separated froth.
However, these strategies may have many notable side effects which seriously harms the environment. As a surface mining technique, topsoil, rocks, and vegetation are destroyed in order to reach the excavation site. This leads to soil erosion and pollution, which will also have adverse effect on the rest of the ecosystem. This technique can also lead to deforestation and vegetation loss, as well as species extinction. They may also cause imbalances in local food chains, destructions of habitat, and other effects on biodiversity.
Furthermore, open-pit mining can cause air and water contamination. Particulate matter is a type of pollutant product that is generated through open-pit mining, which can worsen the air quality of the surrounding area. Nearby water bodies can also be affected by toxic waste products.
Now that we know how this raw material is harnessed, what is it actually used for? Well, the answer lies all around us, literally. The typical American car contains around 50 pounds of copper, and the average American home contains 400 pounds. Copper is an outstanding conductor of both heat and electricity, being beaten only by silver. However, due to its relative abundance, it is preferred over the latter. Moreover, copper has unique antibacterial properties, earning itself the title of an official public health product by Health Canada and the US Environmental Protection Agency.
These unique properties lend themselves to many applications, namely building and construction, electricity and electronics, general consumer goods, industrial machinery and equipment, and transportation. Copper even plays a role in the aerospace field. Lastly, it can also be regularly found on high-touch surfaces such as door handles and restaurant tables.
Due to its importance to the electricity industry, this material will play a huge role in the mitigation of climate change and the protection of nature. Many organizations, like the International Energy Agency, predict that the world's reliance on fossil fuels will be significantly reduced and that the effects of climate change will be lightened as a result of electrification of the transportation sector.
Considering its wide range of ever-increasing uses in the modern world, it is evident that the copper industry is a profitable one.
To deduce copper's economic importance to our province, British Columbia, we need to find out two things. Firstly, the total generated value of this resource, and secondly, the total GDP of BC. Canada's total produced copper and copper-based products valued at $9.4 billion in 2022, and it exported a total of around 400,000 tons of copper and copper ores and concentrates in that same year. As for BC, it had $3.7 billion in copper ores and concentrates exports. BC's total provincial GDP was $299.2 billion in 2022.
Now, performing our own calculations, we take the total generated value of the copper resource and divide it by the GDP of the BC area, getting approximately 1.2%. Considering this percentage only accounts for one particular resource, this shows that copper is quite significant for the BC economy.
However, there's also another factor not yet considered, and that is the job opportunities it offers. However, even the combination of mining, quarrying, oil, and gas extraction only entails 0.6% of the total BC workforce. But then the manufacturing of copper could also potentially bring a certain more amount of economic prosperity. Yet, the manufacturing sector in BC is again too insignificant to even consider that of copper. The total manufacturing employment of BC is only around 7,500 people, is 3.6% of the total workforce. And because manufacturing in general covers a lot of different resources, that just of copper is even more insignificant. So all in all, although copper is a highly valuable resource in terms of money and economy, it does not matter as much for employment.
It is abundantly clear that copper is an essential resource that we need, not just right now, but also to innovate in our technological fields and protect our environment for the future. Yet, at the same time, the extraction of this material also poses many hazards to nature. In order to ensure that we cause minimal damage to our existing ecosystems while maintaining sustainable use of copper, a balance must be struck. This is where laws and regulations can help us.
One example of a policy set in motion to protect Canadian resources is the Minerals and Metals Policy made by the Government of Canada. It states that the government will ensure the consideration of environmental, economic, and social factors in handling of mineral resources. Another example is pollution prevention, a federal strategy for action which outlines the government's plan to avoid or minimize the creation of pollutants and wastes to avoid endangerment to human health.
The BC government also has laws surrounding mining. For instance, the Environmental Management Act states that major mining operations require authorization before discharging waste. This includes effluent discharges, air emissions, and solid wastes. This ensures that operations are managing their waste responsibly.
Overall, all of these regulations make sure that mining operations are actively addressing pollution by stray metals, of safer mining practices, and the health of human and wildlife alike. Some delve deeper and focus on more unique requirements, such as decreasing demand for raw new ore and ensuring that mining practices evolve with new scientific insights, etc. However, in the end, these efforts all collectively aim and contribute actively to a world with safer, cleaner, and more sustainable copper.
In conclusion, copper is extremely important in today's world. And as we strive for a cleaner, more sustainable future, it will only become more important. However, as we reach for our long-term goals, we must not forget about the process. Specifically, we must ensure that we are exploiting our resources as responsibly and sustainably as possible. But provided that we do, the future is looking bright.